Facts Only Test Prep.
Welcome to Facts Only Test Prep. We're called Facts Only because we give you everything you need and nothing you don't when it comes to the SAT. So please enjoy the next video.
Imaginary numbers.
Right, so imaginary numbers. They're part of a large scope of material that we see in high school, but they are actually part of a really narrow field of questions on the SAT. There are really only two things that you should ever need to do with imaginary numbers. Real quickly, imaginary numbers are like the number I, which is the square root of -1. Doesn't exist in real life, but it is a mathematical concept. And there are two things that you will have to do if you see the letter I. The first would be to treat it like any other variable. You can treat it like an X or a W and just combine it with other like terms. The other thing that you might need to do, and this would be if you saw it as part of a fraction, you'll have to multiply by the complex conjugate. Now, if that sounds complicated, don't worry, I'll walk you through those steps. You're going to need Test 1, Section 3, Question 2, Test 2, Section 3, number 11, and Test 4, Section 3, number 14 for today's lesson. Pause the video, go to factsonlytestprep.com and grab those links if you need to. Let's get started. This is Test 1, Section 3, number 2. We don't have any fractions, even though we're dealing with the imaginary number I, the square root of -1. We're just going to combine like terms here. We've got a 7, and we're adding a -8 to that. 7 plus -8 is -1. We've got a +3 and a +9i. We're going to add, or a +3i and a +9i. We're going to add those. We get +12i. And even though this involves imaginary numbers, we're not doing anything special. Our answer is -1 plus 12i. Our answer is A. So you're feeling pretty good about that. You're taking the test, and then you move on to Test 2, Section 3, number 11, and you see that there's a fraction involved and that you're asked for an equivalent set of fractions, all of which involve an I. This is a lot scarier, but if you learn this one process that you've probably already done, then you should have no trouble with these. We're going to take this fraction, 3 minus 5i over 8 plus 2i, and we're going to multiply by the complex conjugate of the denominator. That's a lot of words. All that means is that instead of multiplying by 8 plus 2i, we will multiply the numerator and denominator by 8 minus 2i. The reason that we're doing this is that when we FOIL everything, we will get rid of i's in the denominator. And if you look at all the answer choices, none of them have i's in the denominator. That's something that I've noticed over looking at several of these tests. You don't have to notice that. All you need to know is that if you see fractions with imaginary numbers, you're using this process here. And now we're just FOILing, which you learned how to do in like 7th or 8th grade. So life is easy again. Let's do 3 times 8, that's 24. 3 times -2i, that's -6i. I feel like the heat is on. Can I FOIL in real time? -5i times 8, that's -40i. And -5i times -2i is +10i squared. And that I squared is going to come in handy in a moment. We're going to leave that alone for now, but we'll see it again soon enough. Now we're going to FOIL the bottom. 8 times 8 is 64. 8 times -2i is -16i. 2i times 8 is +16i. You might see that we're going to cancel those. That's going to be a nice thing for us. And lastly, +2i and -2i is -4i squared. Let's remember that I is the square root of negative 1. So I squared is negative 1. So this is nice. We've foiled both the numerators and the denominators. Now we have an expression in which all we need to do is combine like terms. We also need to pay attention to this idea right here, that the letter I is the square root of negative 1. So I squared will equal negative 1. Let's combine some like terms. We've got 24, negative 6i and negative 40i are going to give us a sum of negative 46i. And then 10 times I squared is the same as 10 times negative 1. That's negative 10. We'll combine that with the 24 in a moment. In the denominator, we have 64. Minus 16i plus 16i, those cancel each other. Minus 4i squared, that's the same as minus 4 times negative 1, or plus 4. We'll combine those in a moment. So now we've got 24 and negative 10. That's the same as 14 minus 46i. And in our denominator, we've got 68. We're going to simplify each of these terms, and then we're going to break them into a real and an imaginary portion, and we'll see if our answer matches any of the answer choices. Both the numerator and denominator are divisible by 2, so let's turn this into 7 minus 23i over 34. And that's the same as 7 over 34 minus 23i over 34, which is answer choice C. And that's why C is the right answer. So let's review these steps. You're just multiplying by the conjugate of the denominator. It will always be the denominator that you're working with, the conjugate of, because we shouldn't have i's, we shouldn't have imaginary numbers in our denominators. Let's do one more of these. This is test 4, section 3, number 14. We're rewriting this expression, and I'm going to talk about, the way the question is asked, which is what is the value of A. I'll make that clear at the end. Pause the video. See if you can do this on your own first, though. All right, here we go. So just by looking at the fact that this question has i's, imaginary numbers, and is a fraction, I know right away that I want to multiply by the complex conjugate. So I'm going to take 8 minus I over 3 minus 2i. Hey, boys and girls, what's the conjugate of 3 minus 2i? Yeah, that's right. It's 3 plus 2i. That's great. And whatever I do to the numerator, I do to the denominator, and vice versa. And again, we're just going to be foiling. So 8 times 3 is 24. 8 times 2i is 16i. Negative I times 3 is negative 3i. And negative I times 2i is negative 2i squared. And again, that I squared is going to turn into a negative 1 in a moment. Now let's FOIL out the bottom. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 2i is 6i. Negative 2i times 3 is negative 6i. We know those are going to cancel in a moment. And negative 2i times positive 2i is negative 4i squared. So again, we're combining like terms. I'm going to switch colors here. We've got 24. This is our numerator, 24. 16i, negative 3i, so 24 minus 13i. And minus 2i squared. Remember that I squared is negative 1, so this becomes plus 2. And in our denominator, we have 9. Positive 6i and negative 6i cancel. Negative 4i squared is the same as negative 4 times negative 1. So we have a positive 4 now. And our new numerator will combine like terms 24 and 2 to be 26 and negative 13i with positive 13 in the denominator, 9 plus 4. Lastly, we can simplify this because 26 and 13 both contain 13 as a factor. So we can rewrite this as 2 minus I, right? 26 divided by 13 and negative 13i divided by 13. So in 2 minus I, we have a real term and we have an imaginary term. The question is asking us to put our answer in a plus bi form. In this case, the a term is 2 and the bi term is negative I. The value of a is just 2. And if they were asking for the b term, we would say that the b term is 1. That would be the invisible coefficient in front of I, but they're not asking for it. There you go, imaginary numbers. I don't think that they'll ask you to do anything that we haven't covered in this video, so go get them. Good luck, everybody. Hey, thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure that you like us and subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you'll get information on the new videos as soon as they're available. It helps us a lot. Also, visit us at factsonlytestprep.com. That's where you'll find links to the tests that I use in my lessons, along with some other resources that we prepared for you. Thanks and good luck.